We are now in the home stretch of Superlatives Week, and today I'll be discussing my top 5 sleepers your Buffoon League mates are overlooking for 2023 fantasy football. Players that are going in the double-digit rounds right now, according to multi-site ADP, who are absolute steals. So if you guys enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below. Let's try to get this video to over 1,000 likes. And of course, if you're new, subscribe to the channel. But with that being said, let's waste no more time and let's get right into it. All right, kicking off with my number 5 sleeper, your Buffoon League mates are overlooking. We head over into San Francisco with Elijah Mitchell, running back of the San Francisco 49ers, going off the board as the running back 41, 148th overall player on multi-site ADP. And he's one of the easiest running back smashes in the double-digit rounds I've seen in a while. And in terms of the situation, obviously, we know that there's the elephant in the room here that Christian McCaffrey, a consensus top 5 pick across fantasy football, is, of course, a San Francisco 49er as well. But literally every other factor is working in Elijah Mitchell's favor. Obviously, the play calling there with Kyle Shanahan, especially with the run scheme that he has in town. The offensive line is very strong there with guys like Trent Williams on it. And of course, their offensive prowess. We expect the San Francisco offensive unit to push to be a top 5 to 10 offense in the entire NFL in 2023. In terms of Elijah Mitchell's split with McCaffrey, I really don't think people realize just how involved Elijah Mitchell was last year. Elijah Mitchell has some standalone value in the right matchups. If he's playing a team like the Cardinals, the Texans, bad run defenses like that where the 49ers should be up big, I do think that Elijah Mitchell has some standalone viability, even if Christian McCaffrey is playing. In the 4 regular season games he played with McCaffrey on the field last year, 43 opportunities, 245 yards from scrimmage, and 2 touchdowns in that stretch, as well as 12 red zone opportunities to CMC's 11. And before anybody comments, that was only a 4-game sample. CMC is going to be the bell cow. In the 2 playoff games that they did suit up together, Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, we saw in those games 26 opportunities and a touchdown from scrimmage from Elijah Mitchell in that stretch. And this coincides with the information we've been given all offseason from 49ers circles. Apparently, they want to avoid overworking Christian McCaffrey. They want to make sure this is, a fresh timeshare level committee, which is evident, of course, when Elijah Mitchell was healthy. When Christian McCaffrey saw his opportunities per game as a Niner decrease from 25 per game without Mitchell in the lineup to only 18 per game when Elijah Mitchell was healthy. And right now, I think Elijah Mitchell has an extremely affordable cost, solely given his standalone value. But when we also apply his implied value, if CMC were to ever miss time, you could understand why he's easily one of the most valuable bench pieces. Like if CMC missed any time, Elijah Mitchell would be a consistent top 12 running back across the industry's rankings. So value that accordingly once you get to the double-digit rounds, that not many other profiles have the level of upside a guy like Elijah Mitchell does. Of course, CMC, we know inherently right now, not one of the most durable backs in the NFL, is at an advanced age for the position at 27 years old. And with the workload he already has under his belt, I do think it's fair to question just how much Christian McCaffrey has left in the tank. And if CMC were to miss any time, not only do I think Elijah Mitchell is viable, like I mentioned, I think he can downright be a league winner. He's a guy who, in his rookie season as the starting running back for San Francisco, put up 227 opportunities, 15 PPR points per game in the 11 games he was deemed the starting running back that year. I do think that level of upside, that level of efficiency, that level of offensive line play should continue if McCaffrey were to go down. And at a double-digit round price tag, there is absolutely no downside to taking Elijah Mitchell. But going off to number 4 on this list, we have Nico Collins, wide receiver of the Houston Texans, going off the board as the wide receiver 57, 186th overall player on multi-site ADP. And I think he's in a prime opportunity now to truly show what he's got with a full wide receiver 1 level opportunity. And so far this preseason, he's taken absolute advantage. You guys can see a tweet from Dwayne McFarland. CJ Stroud played 9 drives this past preseason, and Nico Collins was by far the wide receiver 1 in this stretch. 91% route participation on those 9 drives, a 30% target share, and a 34% target rate. And I do think there's questions just to how valuable that is given how bad the offense looked in 2022. I'm really excited to see the Shanny stamp, that new offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, coming over from the San Francisco 49ers, is able to imprint on this offense. We saw last season, of course, how well a Shanahan protege with Mike McDaniel did for the Miami Dolphins. And I am excited to see what could be in store for Slowick's rendition on this Houston Texans offense. You guys can see that the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins by far ran the most motion in the entire NFL in 2022. And I do expect a ton more motion from this Houston offense relative to where they were last year. Adding that Kyle Shanahan influence to an offense that really just desperately needed signs of life in 2022, in addition, of course, to rookie second overall pick CJ Stroud coming aboard, I think this offense should be a lot more exciting, a lot more fun, and downright just way better. And Collins was a player that we really saw ascend down the stretch of last season in 2022 prior to getting shut down in week 14. Obviously, the Texans were tanking at this point. They didn't really have incentive, to rush him back. But in that stretch in weeks 10 to 13, Collins saw 9 targets per game, produced nearly 5 receptions and 44 receiving yards per contest. And I get it, while the efficiency, of course, was not great on that volume. But when we contextualize the fact that the Texans had arguably the worst quarterback room and offense in the entire NFL, it's encouraging to see the level of involvement we saw from Collins as a second-year wide receiver. And now with Brandon Cooks out of town, he has the opportunity to truly develop into this team's true wide receiver one, alpha wide receiver for the Texans offense, a team that will likely follow a ton of negative game script in 2023. I expect the pass happy scripts given their team expectations with a 6.5 implied win total according to Vegas. And while Stroud may struggle out of the gate especially, it really truly just can't get much worse than the hodgepodge they had last year of Davis Mills, Kyle Allen, and Jeff Driscoll all attempting passes for the Texans in 2022. I'm extremely bullish on Collins' potential target upside, and given the preseason usage, I do think getting him in the double-digit rounds does seem very strange. He's just such a crystal clean projection for a guy with a wide receiver 5 or 6 price tag. So if you're in round 10, you're in round 11, and Nico Collins is still available in your drafts, make sure he is on every one of your teams. My number 3 sleeper that your buffoon league mates are overlooking actually coincides with my number 1 player they're overdrafting, and that is Jaylen Warren, running back of the Steelers, who's posing a real threat to the expected workload we had for Najee Harris coming into the offseason. For starters, Warren has already shown that he's just simply a much more efficient back than Najee Harris at this point. As I mentioned in the case against Najee over on my 5 players your buffoon league mates are overdrafting video, but last year, Najee Harris, about 4.02 yards from scrimmage per touch, ranked 48th at the running back position, 0.24 missed tackles forced per touch, RB 14, 2.63 yards after contact per touch, RB 38, and a 0.92 yards per route run. Whereas with Jaylen Warren, he basically just demolishes him across the board. 5.65 yards from scrimmage per touch, which ranked as the running back 8. 0.29 missed tackles forced per touch, running back 6. 3.1 yards after contact per touch, RB 14. And 1.31 yards per route run, which ranked as the running back 17 in the NFL. And if you guys think the Steelers haven't caught on, their utilization with the first team offense this preseason has nearly been a 55-45 split, with Warren getting all of the snaps on third down. As tweeted by Adam Levitan, Kenny Pickett played 28 snaps this preseason. Najee was in on 16 of them with 8 routes run, whereas Jaylen Warren was in on 12 of them with 5 routes run and all 4 of the third down situations. I know the Tony Pollard Ezekiel Elliott comparison has been used quite a bit, but I do think it depicts exactly how the Steelers backfield could operate. On one hand, the market assumes, this first round pick would operate ahead of the day 3 pick, or in Warren's case, an undrafted player. But this team still wants to win football games, and playing the better back just simply accomplishes that. And I do think Najee will get more work compared to Jaylen Warren, but the difference is that you're paying a 3rd round price tag on Najee for what looks to be an inefficient 60% opportunity share over an efficient 40% opportunity share back that you can get in double-digit rounds with Jaylen Warren. And I think that Warren does have standalone value, especially if he can keep cracking into the money down situations for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the big alert also, of course, comes with the implied value for Jaylen Warren. The efficiency, the 3-down profile, of course, the size as well. But Jaylen Warren is a 5'8", 215-pound brick shithouse. And if Najee were to miss any time, Warren has league winner and number 1 overall waiver ad written all over him. The double-digit rounds, of course, are tough to navigate at times, but in your home leagues, my advice is always to swing for the fences. Not on guys that, could make your lineup on a given week, but guys that can provide you a huge advantage if they do hit, which Jaylen Warren does. And while your league is fixated on dead zone backs without juice, you'll be loading up on your wide receivers in your onesie positions and still crushing their Dalvin Cook at running back too. If Warren works into the opportunity, I think he can this year. But before we get into my number 2 must-draft sleeper for fantasy football in 2023, I want to spread awareness to the number 1 tool to crush your home leagues in 2023, our redraft rankings manifesto. And between mine and Corey's top 200 rankings, our positional rankings, our rankings compared to your home league ADP, whether on Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, NFL Fantasy, risk ratings, and my True Series where I break down patterns from every top player's 2022 campaign, you'll be fully equipped to take down the ultimate prize in your league. And if you want all of this, you need all of this. There are 2 ways to access it right now. If you guys go to Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FSC on your first deposit, not only will you get a 100% match back on your first deposit, so if you put $100 in, you'll have $200 in site credit to play with, but you'll also get full access to our redraft rankings manifesto and our weekly rankings, which will be updated on a week-to-week basis during the 2023 season. If you guys have start sit decisions, trade advice, everything you need will be in that manifesto. So do not miss out on this opportunity. And the other way to access it, if you guys don't have an Underdog account or maybe already have an Underdog account with a different promo code applied, is by going to flockfantasy.com and using promo code FSC for 30% off any package. Whether you want to be a flocker or a mother flocker, you'll get access to all of our rankings, our trade value charts, to Age and Touch Apex, other bonus content available on the site, as well as access to our private Discord where we answer start sits directly. You guys can reach out to us on a day-to-day basis. You will have access to that. And if you guys sign up right now for one of the annual packages over on flockfantasy.com and use promo code FSC, we will even offer a free Zoom consultation. If you guys literally haven't had your drafts already and you want us on the call during your home league drafts to crush, you can literally book that right now by becoming a member over on flockfantasy.com and using promo code FSC. But with that being said, let's get right back to the sleepers video. And my number 2 overall sleeper being Rashod Bateman, wide receiver of the Baltimore Ravens, going off the board as the wide receiver 52, 154th overall player. And like Nico Collins, he has a prime opportunity in a new look offense to absolutely crush. And in fact, Bateman had an extremely promising reception perception profile as a rookie, and Matt Harmon cannot stop singing his praises, calling him a potential true wide receiver 1 that can win on all 3 levels of the field, and he was excellent as a rookie. 74th percentile against man, 85th percentile against zone, 81st percentile against press. And these are numbers that compare to some of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. And Matt Harmon went as far as saying that the Ravens have struggled to find a number 1 wide receiver during the Lamar Jackson era. And he's bullish that they finally found their man with Rashod Bateman. I feel like for the most part, people realize that Rashod Bateman is a talented player, given the first-round status and the flashes he's shown. But I don't think many consider him as a potential top 15 or 20 overall talent in the league, which I do think he can get to if he puts it together across a full season. And of course, the main downside to why Bateman hasn't proven it thus far has been injuries. The injuries have marred his ascension into that territory, in my opinion. But Dr. Edmund Porras of Fantasy Points isn't worried in the slightest when it comes to his injury concerns when it comes to Rashod Bateman. And in fact, goes on record to say over this tweet that he's extremely bullish on him at his current ADP with no real significant injury concerns that aren't already baked into his cost. And a healthy Bateman is already a scary proposition for opposing defenses. But the new look Todd Monken offense coming to town after years of that archaic 1980s style football Baltimore's offense was running with Greg Roman should make it even scarier. And Warren Sharp actually tweets this out, but he does tweet that the new explosive offense candidate is the Ravens. And he notes that they only used 11 personnel at a 9.8% rate last year, which was the lowest in a decade. With Todd Monken coming in, with, of course, wide receiver additions this offseason, I expect them to be a base 11 personnel team, which is extremely exciting for the upside we can expect for Bateman this year. And he couldn't hold back when he was interviewed about the offensive changes. He just left it at, it's going to look different, with a smile on his face. You guys can see that on the screen. But assuming health is on Rashod Bateman's side, he should follow the trend of year 3 wide receivers breaking out in fantasy football in a big way. You guys can see a chart on the screen from Ryan Heath of Fantasy Points, but he does note that the most frequent breakout for a young wide receiver just so happens to be in their 3rd year at a 31.9% breakout rate. While there is obviously target competition in Baltimore now, with, of course, elite tight end Mark Andrews already in town and the additions of Odell Beckham Jr. and Zay Flowers. But There's plenty of pie left after Mark Andrews, given the increase in passing volume we can expect this year. Zay Flowers, while I like him, I think he's a small rookie slot wide receiver. I prefer Bateman straight up when it comes to 2023. And with Odell Beckham Jr., he's a soon-to-be 31-year-old wide receiver coming off of a major knee injury after missing the entirety of the 2022 NFL season. But the opportunity for Bateman to truly establish himself as the alpha of the wide receiver core is absolutely there. And make sure, while your buffoon league mates are drafting guys like Adam Thielen and Van Jefferson, you're scooping up a young wide receiver with elite upside like Rashod Bateman represents. But going on to number one, my number one must-draft sleeper, my number one sleeper your buffoon league mates are completely overlooking in 2023 is Elijah Moore, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, going off the board as the wide receiver 51, 153rd overall player on multi-site ADP. And when it comes to Elijah Moore's career to this point, it's been extremely frustrating as a big Elijah Moore fan. The talent leaps off the screen, and we've seen what he can do in flashes, but he's never quite been able to consistently pull it off in his 2 seasons as a New York Jet. However, not all of that fault should be attributed to Moore himself. He's still separated from man and press extremely well, according to Matt Harmon. I have no issues with Moore expressing his frustrations last season. He was getting open, and yet the unstable quarterback position of the Jets simply could not get the ball in his hands. Obviously, this offseason, he gets dealt to the Cleveland Browns and now has an opportunity to threaten for a prominent role on what could be one of the best breakout offenses of 2023 fantasy football. And by all accounts, it's appeared that Moore has taken his opportunity in camp thus far and has developed a strong rapport with Deshaun Watson on the Browns thus far. And Dwayne McFarland actually tweeted this out, but he played in 5 drives with Deshaun Watson this preseason. He leaves the field on 2 wide receiver sets. He still only has about a 75% route participation. But despite that, he led the team in targets per route at 33% and target share at 31%. And Dwayne also notes that a wide receiver 44 ADP is cheap for Elijah Moore. And it just so happens he goes much later on multi-site ADP. His usage has been extremely encouraging thus far. And if Kevin Stefanski can utilize him in space and get the ball in his hands early and often, he has the opportunity to truly put it all together this season. And Matt Harmon highlighted his role perfectly in Moore's 2022 reception perception write-up. He can separate against man in the intermediate portion of the field, and he truly has an opportunity to dominate as this team's vertical slot wide receiver. My comp for Elijah Moore when he was coming out of Ole Miss was Tyler Lockett, and entering year 3, where young wide receivers typically break out like mentioned before, I truly think we see him reach his ceiling this year. And at his current cost of wide receiver 51, he's an absolute no-brainer as a, wide receiver 5'6", upside shot on your team. If this Browns offense does take the step I expect and Watson does indeed bounce back, Moore has legitimate wide receiver 2 upside in fantasy football this year. But either way, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And about 83% of you guys watching in the last month are not subscribed. If you guys generally got real value from this, you think I did a good job, you're going to take away some of these takes going into your fantasy football drafts, the least you can do is smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's only fair that you guys have to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 35,000 subscribers. Ideally, we're trying to hit it going into the season. So if you haven't already contributed to the cause, please help so. But with that being said, peace out and enjoy your Friday.